Hi everyone. So let's get started because time is of the essence. We will be having the power of terminology management, insights from MEDEL by Valentina Golden and Luisa Zimmerman. Let me just give you some information about them. Ladies. Just as an introduction, both Valentina and Luisa have always been passionate about languages. They have both studied translation sciences, where Valentina decided to focus on conference interpreting, and Luisa on translations. After they finished their studies at the University of Innsbruck, Luisa started working for MEDEL as a project manager for translations, taking on the role of memoQ admin. Valentina gathered experience as a freelance interpreter and then later worked for BBT as an interpreter. They joined forces when Valentina started working at MEDEL in 2022 to take on their terminology project. So, take it away.
Thank you, Luz. Yeah, this is working, right? Yeah. Hi, everybody. Thank you for showing up, so many of you. Terminology management. I already know what you're thinking. Very theoretical, very daunting, and a topic that gets neglected in a lot of companies. But it doesn't have to be. Valentina and I are project managers for translations at an Austrian company called MEDEL in the marketing department, and we will tell you about the story of terminology management in our company. And I will give you some of the background information and tell you about the journey towards terminology management, and Valentina will go into the details of the issues we encountered and how we overcame those. So just to give you some background information about the field we work in, MEDEL designs and produces hearing implants to help people with hearing loss hear the sound of life again. Our headquarters are located in Innsbruck, Austria, in the middle of the mountains. And we are a family-owned business, but don't be fooled because we're represented in over 136 countries and translate materials into 40 plus languages. Our company languages are English and German, so most material is originated in English, then translated into German and simultaneously translated into all the other 40 languages externally. We don't have one central translation team, but we have different translation teams in different departments translating different materials. And since we sell medical implantable products, we work in a highly regulated environment. So this is why consistency in terminology is becoming more and more important to us. And this is why we started with this project now. So just to give you some background information about how things were when we started with this project. Terminology has been a topic in our company for the last 10 years since we started using memoQ. But since our company grew so quickly, it wasn't always a priority or any priority. And in the past, it was decided that the different departments in the different translation teams in the different departments would be using different term bases. While this has some advantages, the main disadvantage is that we have a lot of overlaps in materials in different departments. So, for example, the website, the support section on the website is basically the same as the user manual that gets delivered to the user when they buy our product. But since these two things are translated by different departments that are using different term bases, we have a lot of inconsistency in translation because the different departments would be using different translations for the same terms in English. We also weren't using any terminology tools, so we were just using the term bases in memoQ projects, so we didn't have any meta information in there. And also, everybody could add to these lists, so it was just a random list of glossaries that didn't have anything to do with terminology, basically. There have been attempts at terminology in the past in our company, but since it was always one person at a time trying to tackle this project, and it wasn't the main focus of their job, it always failed. And also there was just a general lack of knowledge within the company about terminology and why it's important to manage terminology. So they didn't also have the backing of any managers. So this time around, We wanted to make sure that we learn from all these mistakes and do a better job at it. So before even diving into this project, we knew we needed some training. So we reached out to our long-trusted LSP, and they gave us some training about how to implement terminology in such a big company, what steps to take to make sure that it catches on. And together with them, we decided that we would be using QTerm, since we were already using memoQ in our company for a long time, and it also had the best features that we needed for our project. We established a terminology team that consists of 4 people, so the 2 of us from marketing and 2 colleagues from labeling, because those are our translation-heavy departments. And together with our LSP, we came up with a team strategy of what terminology work would look like in our terminology team. And we also set short and long-term goals and defined how to educate the company about terminology. So as soon as all of this was set, we were ready to start with this project. So like I already said, our biggest challenge was that we had different term bases in different departments, but that was also our natural starting point. So we merged all term bases in QTerm that we could find in English and German, our company languages, and we had around 3,000 entries. Of course, a lot of these entries were duplicates, so we filtered all duplicates in QTerm, merged the ones that were identical and the ones that weren't identical, so either the English spelling was slightly different or the German translation was different. We would discuss within our terminology team with the help of an expert, internal or external, and we would also get rid of those. And once we did all that, we looked at the whole list again, because like I said, it was just a random list of words in the past, and got rid of everything that we didn't consider as terminology. And we were left with around 1,000 entries for our master term base in English and German. So after half a year of sorting through English and German terms, of filling in metadata, adding pictures, adding descriptions, we took all the energy we had left over to put into filling in the term base in the other 40 languages we translate into. We had already translated a lot of materials in the past, so we had a lot of resources we wanted to use to fill in this project. We didn't want to start from scratch, so we had a lot of translation memories, a lot of term bases in the different languages that we wanted to use to fill in the term base, the master term base in English and in the other languages. So we thought about what we could do. We set up a memoQ project, just a normal translation project, exported the term base in English into the other languages from QTerm as an Excel file, imported it into this project, and attached all TMs and TBs in all languages. Then we needed to do some internal testing to see if this would work how we had imagined it would work. So everybody from our translation team started filling out the term base in the language they have high proficiency in. And we were using a lot of concordance search because, of course, like I said, the term bases in the past didn't really include terms that would now be in our term base. So we had to kind of search for these terms in the text we had already translated. And if we found terms that would match, where the translation would match in the different departments, we would use that term. But if we, and of course there were a lot of terms where the translation didn't match, and those ones we would note down and then discuss within our team and with an external expert or internal expert. Once we saw that this was working well, we decided to involve our LSP for the other 40 languages, or 38 languages. We wrote detailed instructions for the translator how to treat terms where they found different translations in different departments, for example, or if they didn't find any translation with the concordance search. We had a briefing meeting with our LSP, but also a lot of feedback loops because we translated one language at a time. and we had feedback loops to kind of see how we could improve on our workflow. And of course, during all this, so from the setup in memoQ to sending it out to our LSP, we encountered a lot of problems, and Valentina will tell you more about those.
Yes, so up to this point, it might really seem like we were really organized on top of our games, but it wasn't all that rosy, as you can expect. And there were some challenges that really made our brain cells work over time. So let us share with you what these challenges were. The first important challenge we faced was already when setting up the memoQ project itself for all of the 40 languages we need. We would receive this error message from memoQ all the time, and we really didn't understand why. After quite some thinking, we figured that this was due to the configuration of the Excel file that we were exporting from QTerm. Because the target languages were empty in QTerm, it wasn't possible to export an Excel file with the languages in rows in the Excel file. And so, subsequently, it wasn't possible to import them the way we wanted into the memoQ project. So, what did we do to solve this problem? Well, we thought about mock entries in QTerm. So, as you can see here in this screenshot, we put 3 exclamation points in Dutch and in Russian because those were the languages that we wanted to fill out at the time. This way we were able to export the Excel file in a bilingual setting, so with English as a source and the languages to fill out as target. And then we could import them one by one into the memoQ project. So this was the solution to our first challenge. Well, one of the biggest challenges we faced was also that after translation, when re-importing the Excel file back into QTerm, we would end up with so many more duplicates and also some IDs that got mixed up, and we didn't understand why. So to show you how this challenge looked like, here I have an example. So maybe we would have in the Excel file an entry number 3 and an entry number 5, but no entry number 4 because maybe we deleted it during the selection process and we decided that this didn't really apply as a terminology entry. So what QTerm would tend to do is to duplicate the term number 3 into the row of the missing term number 4, which was now empty. And that's why when re-importing the Excel file back into QTerm, we would end up with so many duplicates, and that was really annoying. So it took us a lot of time to figure out why this was happening, but the solution was rather simple. So we just had to make sure that the ID numbers in the first row were all subsequent to one another, and this way, when re-importing the file back into QTerm, we wouldn't have duplicates anymore. So that was actually the solution. Well, one of the biggest problems that we faced wanting to use the memoQ editor to fill out our term base was that, as you can see here in this screenshot of the memoQ translation editor, you only have one column for the source language. This means that you can only display one term entry for the source language in the translation editor. But as we all know, we can also have alternative terms that are allowed, abbreviations, forbidden terms, and this would have been left out of the project, which was not ideal at all. So we needed to figure out a way to be able to display these terms too, so that the translators could use them for the terminology work. So we decided to use the multilingual delimited text filter in memoQ to import the column containing the alternative terms, the abbreviations, and the forbidden terms as comments to the source language, as you can see here. Here on the display we have one example of one of the entries. We have this 3-pin port with 3 written out as a number. And as a comment to it, we have the 3-pin port written out in letters, which, as you can see from the comment below, is a non-term, so a forbidden term. This way, translators could see also in the translation editor the forbidden terms and also alternative terms. The problem was now solved for the source language, but what about the target? Because we have here the same problem. We only have one column for the target language. And of course, the comments were already taken for something else. So we just sat down with our colleagues, and after quite some time, we decided to test the discussions function in memoQ for this. So here, just for the sake of simplicity, I'm showing an example in English, but this applies to the target language, as I was saying. Here we have the term splash proof with an hyphen, which is the allowed version. And we developed a pattern for the discussions to use. And here I'm showing you an example for a forbidden term. So we would start a discussion. We would write in the summary field forbidden in TP. And then in the problem field, we would write the term itself that was forbidden. So in this case, splash proof without the hyphen. Then in the suggestion field, we would write why it was forbidden. And then finally, we would assign the discussion to the relevant person and create the discussion itself. So this process required us a lot of training to get used to, but it proved to be really effective. And when re-importing the translated file back into QTerm, then we would manually add the forbidden terms or the alternative terms from the target language directly in QTerm by using the discussions we started in the memoQ project. So, as you can imagine, this was quite a long trial and error process. So, we started this in 2022, so it's been quite long. But it really helped us adapt our process within the terminology group in our company. And now we can share with you how it looks like at the moment for us. So, whenever new products or features are released at our company, our colleagues from the branding department create the branding documents. Then they inform us immediately so that we can update the term base and the non-translatable list in German and in English, so the official company languages. After that, we send the materials containing the new terms into translation so that the translators from our LSP can help us fill out the term base also in the other languages by translating terms in context. In case of doubts, we are lucky enough to have many experts that can help us clarify terms in over 40 languages, which is of course a big advantage. We also have regular meetings within our terminology group every 3 weeks for now. And what we do during these meetings is discussing terminology relevant topics or terms that need to be edited, maybe also in the branding documents. And we also organize events to raise awareness about terminology within our company. That's also a really important aspect. And if we find terms that need to be changed in the branding documents, we get back to our colleagues from the branding department, and the circle starts again and again. So at this point, we provided you with our use case, but during this journey, we noticed that there are some points that might be helpful for you as language service providers to better support and attract your customers towards the terminology journey. And also from a customer's perspective, what's really important to know before tackling such a huge project. First of all, it's really important to get an introduction into terminology. So as LSPs, you can offer your customers an overview about the topic. So you can show them what approaches are out there, and you can help them choose the right one for their needs. And also as a company, you should make sure that you know what terminology is before starting a terminology project for sure, just to save resources also for your company. Then as an LSP, you can support your customers into creating a specific workflow tailored to their needs, and also you can help them come out with a structure of their future term base. Of course, as a customer, you need to make sure that you have your own workflow in place and you know exactly what you're doing before you start doing that. So that's really important, and that helps your company save resources and money, of course. Last but not least, as an LSP, you can help your customers choose the right tool for them. So in our case, it was QTerm, of course. And you can also train them into how to use these tools. And it's also really important to offer them the opportunity to maintain the database, because not every company can have an internal terminology team who can maintain the database once it's set up. So you can offer this as an additional service. And as a company, you should make sure to have all the right tools before getting to work, and you should be realistic about what you can and cannot do within your company if you need help for maintaining the database from an external expert. So all this being said, is this really the end? I'm afraid not, because you're never done with terminology, and once you start with that, it's a living project that will evolve with you and grow with your company. So you'll just have to deal with that once you start. So thank you, that was it from us.